So it was some weekend in the Championship. We'll be discussing all of the matches, and we've also got some massive games coming up in midweek, which we'll also be previewing in the second half of today's video. Let's jump into it all. We're all very much here in the business end of the season, and we can already see some teams starting to crack and others really starting to build up a sense of momentum. As always, make sure to leave a like if you do go on to enjoy today's video, and do get in the comments down below and let me know what you made of your team this weekend and heading into the midweek fixtures, which we'll be speaking about later. Without any further ado though, let's jump into these matches. So starting out with Friday night's game, we had Huddersfield getting back to winning ways, and a big result there in the context of the rest of the weekend, particularly considering the recent run that Huddersfield had had just before the international break, the games they're heading into after this one against Hull, and this could have been a potential banana skin, you know, being a Yorkshire encounter, absolutely anything goes usually in these sorts of matches. I know that Hull haven't been great at home so far this season, but in a local encounter like this, anything could have happened. I thought that both goalkeepers were on top form in the first half. Keane Lewis-Potter had that free kick in quite a promising position, but Lee Nichols, brilliant positional sense, had faith in his wall to do their job, and he obviously does his job at his end of the goal, does well to tip that round the post in the end. In the opposite goal, I thought that Matt Ingram had a good game for Hull, to be honest. Quite a few opportunities that Huddersfield had throughout the afternoon that he managed to stay level to, but the game-changing moment comes just before half-time. Tom Eaves, a little bit silly for that foul, already on the yellow card, goes in from behind, and Hull were always going to be, you know, it was backs against the wall for the second half. And Huddersfield, to be fair, had to be patient in terms of searching for that winner, but they've been such a threat from set-piece situations this season that, of course, that was where the winner was going to come from. Toffolo in the end with the goal, and, you know, bearing a few late chances for Hull. I think Huddersfield definitely deserved this one, but in the context of the rest of the top six, massive result there for Huddersfield. Next then to Bloomfield Road, and Nottingham Forest blowing Blackpool out of the water in this one, laying down a real statement of intent. Absolutely everything they were doing was just going in, and they absolutely ripped Blackpool apart down that right hand side. Jed Spence, Zinkernagel, Brennan Johnson, Yates popping up in some forward positions as well. Some brilliant interplay and some fantastically clinical finishes. Zinkernagel with the first, Brennan Johnson with the next two, and Sam Surridge wrapping it up in the second half. For Blackpool, it was a bit of a weird game really, because Forest caused them all sorts of problems down Blackpool's left hand side. I think that James Husband in the end had quite a tough afternoon, but Blackpool themselves still had some moments. Obviously they got the goal, the consolation one late on, but what's probably most worrying for them is Dujon Sterling going off with that injury towards the end as well. But coming into this one, Blackpool probably had a smidge of an outside chance of maybe rivaling those teams in the top six. It would have taken quite some run for them to go ahead and do so, but I think this really shows the levels in the Championship, and right now I don't think anyone would be fancying their chances against Nottingham Forest in the playoffs come the end of the season. It's some run they're on now. After that, into the big game at the bottom of the Championship at Oakwell, we had Barnsley and Reading playing out a 1-1 draw. Now, coming into this game and in the preview, we said that this really was a must-not-lose game for Reading, and with the late equaliser, I think the point suits Reading quite well actually, especially considering their next two games are at home where they have been better so far this season against two sides who don't have anything to play for at this point in the season. Yeah, that late equaliser from Josh Laurent really tips the balance in Reading's favour in terms of their survival chances for the rest of the season, and it was such a good start from Barnsley as well. Carlton Morris with a brilliant finish from the angle, giving Barnsley the lead after just 5 minutes. It begs the question, how competitive would Barnsley have been maybe earlier on in the season had Carlton Morris been fit, because since he's been back in that side, yeah, the goal output has dramatically gone up for Barnsley. In the second half, I think they fell into their shell a little bit and wanted to sort of protect what they had. Reading probing away, had a lot more of the ball in the second half, and eventually Josh Laurent comes up with another big moment for Reading. Obviously he was the goal scorer in their last game as well, but looking at the fixtures now, by no means is this a, you know, open and shut case like probably would have been the case if Reading had won this match. The opportunity is still there, but things are massively in Reading's hands here. I think they've dodged quite the bullet with that late equaliser there, Reading. Next then to Bournemouth beating Bristol City by 3-2. Big result there for Bournemouth. It now sees them 6 points clear of Huddersfield in third place with 3 games in hand on them. So considering the run of fixtures that Bournemouth are now heading into, it was absolutely imperative they picked up all 3 points in this one. But backs against the wall from minute 1, Bristol City taking the lead through Rob Atkinson. Nice ball whipped in from James from the corner, but there were some lovely patterns of play from Bournemouth in this game, it has to be said. Zamira setting up the first one for Dom Solanke, Lewis Cook slamming home the second from outside the box. Maybe there's the argument that Dan Bentley could do a little bit better for one of the opening 2 goals, but taking nothing away from Bournemouth because, I mean, this is the star quality that they have in the final third. The pick of the goals, I think, has to go to Sarikin and Belly, though. Brilliantly works the space in tight angles. He keeps the ball next to his foot like it's attached to him on a string, and it's a brilliant finish to go along with it. Lewis Cook, who's put in a string of brilliant performances recently, arguably had his best day in this one as well. Bristol City do get that consolation goal through Andy Vyman, but Bournemouth looking very healthy now for a top 2 finish at the end of the season, albeit they do have quite a tricky run coming up now. Next up then to the South Wales derby, and my word, I'd be absolutely fuming if I was a Cardiff fan. From minute 1 to 90, Swansea completely playing Cardiff off the park, and not just in this game, but the reverse fixture as well. The first time either of these sides has ever done the double over the other one in their entire league history, which is absolutely mental. But full credit to Swansea, who were well worthy of the 3 points in this one. Some of the patterns of play were absolutely fantastic. How they worked some of the goals. The first one from Obafemi, the link up from Patterson, was absolutely brilliant. Christie causing all sorts of problems. Wolf getting into some dangerous positions as well. And Swansea were absolutely ruthless in the final third. Sometimes that's been, argued against Swansea. They can be a little bit unreliable in front of goal, but they were cutthroat with their penetrative passes. And if you're a Cardiff player and you fail to get up for a game of this magnitude, I don't know what you can get up for, to be completely honest. But this, I don't know, seemed like a bit of a revolving doors moment really for both sides, because it completely shows that going into next season, Swansea are going in the right direction under Russell Martin. There's a clear philosophy and plan in place, and if we see more of this from Swansea next season, I'm quite excited about what's to come from them, to be honest, if they do add a few more pieces into that setup. In terms of Cardiff, it has felt like they are sort of building in the right direction under Morrison, but this was a real step backwards and sort of harked back to the opening few months of the season under McCarthy, which is a real worry. But taking nothing away from Swansea here, they were absolutely brilliant. With Coventry, we always get some late drama, don't we? And Gyökeres with a 99th minute equaliser in this one. Absolutely incredible scenes at Coventry towards the end, but it was the home side who got the better of Blackburn in the first half. To be honest, Harry Pickering was a little bit unlucky with the own goal, but Coventry were definitely the team on top. It was Callum O'Hare bursting through. Pickering goes in to make that tackle, and unfortunately the ball ends up in the back of the net. But Cov had other chances that half. Gustavo Hamer smacking one against the post as well. But there was, to be fair, an obvious improvement in Blackburn in that second half. Ben Brereton Diaz coming onto the pitch. I think that they carried much more of a goal threat with both him and Bradley Dack on the pitch. I'm looking forward to seeing what Blackburn can do for the remainder of the season with those two back to full fitness. And it was Bradley Dack with the equaliser, Buckley linking up with him, and Bradley Dack so dangerous in those positions around the 6-yard box. Wharton then gives Blackburn the lead in the 82nd minute. Looks like it's enough to win it until Gyökeres steps up in the 99th minute. That's now Coventry's 10th goal they've scored after the 90-minute mark this season, which is absolutely remarkable. By far and away the most effective team in those later stages into matches, and that does do quite the significant blow to Blackburn's top 6 chances, particularly with other sides picking up points around them. But for the time being, a point is enough for Blackburn to carry on holding on to that top 6 place for the time being, although Forest in particular are breathing down their necks now. Next then to Derby beating North End by 1-0, and as a Preston fan I can't really have too many complaints about this one. Derby by far and away the better team, and that's twice this season I've seen Derby completely outplay North End. There was maybe a 5-10 minute spell in the first half where North End looked like we had a little bit about us, but that final ball just wasn't there, and for the rest of the game it was Derby who were, you know, by far and away on top for this one, and 1-0 probably reflects quite kindly on North End, to be honest. If it wasn't for Daniel Everson pulling out a couple of saves, then Derby could have been a lot more comfortable in this one. But Derby, there's still very much that belief, and that could be seen at full time when the goal went in, that a late push for survival could still be on the cards. Don't get me wrong, I still think it's going to be incredibly tough from this situation, but with Barnsley playing at a 1-1 draw with Reading this weekend, sort of fits Derby here, and that belief is certainly still within this group of players. I thought they had a little bit more about them with Ravel Morrison coming on in the second half, but a bit of a bonkers game really with the 2 red cards. Liam Lindsay, I think, has proven himself to be unreliable for Ryan Lowe. Left us with it all to do. Levelled up in the second half though with Max Bird doing his best sort of Ben Pearson impression with how hard he went in to get himself sent off. But down to 10 versus 10, it was still Derby who were on top. Really impressed with some of their youngsters. Ebiaway especially, I thought had a really good game for Derby, causing all sorts of problems, got an absolute wand of a left foot and a really talented technical player. But yeah, as a North End fan, I don't have any complaints about this one. Derby were the better side, although yeah, I am nervously going to be looking forward to Tuesday's match against Blackpool now after what we showed up in this one. Next up then to Kenilworth Road for Luton 2, Millwall 2. Good game between these two sides and not a lot to separate them, as we thought would be the case heading into this game. Millwall still have every chance of a top 6 finish, particularly with the games they've got coming up. 3 of their next 4 games are all at the Den, and the majority of teams they've still got to play for the rest of the season don't really have all too much to play for or are near the bottom of the championship. First goal was classic sort of Gary Rowett ball really. The long ball comes up, Bradshaw wins the flick on, nice link up between him and Wallace and a nice finish to go along with it. But Luton themselves showed how much they could play. A lovely give and go between Adebayo and Bell for that equaliser, and then Millwall once again taking the lead in the second half, and probably quite unfortunate not to go on and hold out for all 3 points with the way the equaliser comes about, with Jake Cooper unfortunately heading into the back of his own net. But I don't think that's the worst point in the world for either side there. I think that both these sides well have it in them for a top 6 finish at the end of the season, and with how competitive this one was, yeah, I don't think that's the worst point for either side there. And next up then we have Middlesbrough with a convincing 4-0 win over Peterborough as they climb into the top 6. Good stuff from Middlesbrough in this one. I have to say it looked like a really fun away end to be in as well. If any of you guys were in that away end at Peterborough, let me know about it in the comments down below. I've seen some really good clips of it on Twitter and things like that. But Middlesbrough taking the lead after 26 minutes, and to be fair, Peterborough did have a few openings in that first half, but the second half, things completely got away from them. Some really basic mistakes they were making at the back, and there's sort of been the case for Peterborough throughout the season. But with the talent that Middlesbrough have in the final third, you can't afford to be making those mistakes, you know, once, twice, 3 times in the match. I think that in the end Middlesbrough created 3 big chances in this game and were well worthy of their 3 points. And what this does now is sets up a really interesting game going into midweek as Middlesbrough take on Fulham in what should be an absolute cracker. QPR up against Fulham next up, and it was quite a routine win for Fulham this one. After the recent run of form that QPR had to come back into the Championship with this game was always going to be difficult, and Fulham getting in behind that QPR backline on numerous occasions. The amount of times they get down either flank and then a cut back across the box, it's how the first goal comes about and how the penalty comes about as well. A little bit of controversy in terms of there has been a debate about whether it was a penalty or not, but ultimately it wouldn't have changed the outcome of this match, and it sort of sealed the inevitable of Fulham picking up all 3 points. Off the back of this game, there has been speculation about Mark Warburton's future at QPR as well, and it is an interesting debate, and I'd like to get some QPR's fans' thoughts on this one in the comments down below. From the outside looking in, I mean, listen, it's been an awful run that QPR have been on recently in terms of the 6-game form table. QPR are at the bottom of it at the moment, having lost 5 of their last 6 championship matches. They're slipping out of the top 6 and aren't really putting up much of a fight. However, there are negating factors which do play into Warburton's hands here with the injuries that have accumulated recently. I think the levels of expectations have also massively risen at QPR because of Warburton and the work that he's done there over the last few seasons, and so to finish and be outside the top 6 now seems like failure. Do I see QPR making the top 6 this season under Mark Warburton? No. Do I think that Warburton has earned a little bit more time for himself heading into next season? I do, and I do think you can sort of hold both of those opinions there, but it'll be really interesting to see what QPR go ahead and do, because I think that what we've praised QPR a lot for since Warburton's come in really is stability and how the club's been run, and this is the first real time over the recent few years that they're going to be tested in terms of what they actually do when it comes to Warburton. I think that, you know, there were several missteps that were made by QPR in terms of the running of the club over the last few decades, but more recently they've been getting things spot on. But this right here, when you're in a tough situation, is really when you see sort of what people are made of, so it will be interesting. And after that too, Stoke 1, Sheffield United 0. Sheffield United's away form is starting to become a little bit of a cause for concern for Blades fans. We did mention it going into this one, but I thought I'd still give Sheffield United the benefit of the doubt. To be honest, there wasn't a hell of a lot in this game really. The way the goal comes about as well, a little bit fortunate on Stoke's part with the deflection off Egan, but Stoke just about edging it in the end. You can see neither side really had all too much going forward. I think both teams just had one shot on target between them in this one. Sheffield United did have a massive call for a penalty, which was bizarrely turned down, especially when you see the sort of angle from behind the goal. But Sheffield United never really seemed to properly get going in this one. The advantage that they have for the rest of the season is I think they're 5 out of their last 7 matches are all at home, where they have been much better, but it still leaves a little bit to be desired in terms of these away performances. In terms of Stoke, back-to-back wins for them. Just a shame that this sort of resurgence in form has probably come a little bit too late in their season, with them being 10 points off the playoffs now. And then the last game we had going on was Birmingham 1, West Brom 0. Birmingham finally getting one over on their local rivals in this one after West Brom had the better of the head-to-head record in recent years. But honestly, not a great spectacle in terms of the overall game of football. Neither team was exactly firing on all cylinders. The first half especially was one of the most dull halves of football we've probably ever seen in the Championship. Neither side had a shot on target, although West Brom had a massive shout for a penalty which probably should have been given. In the end, the penalty was the difference between these two sides. Lyle Taylor coolly walking up to the spot, as he likes to do, sending Sam Johnson the wrong way, and there wasn't really all too much of a fight back from West Brom after that. They actually finished this game without a shot on target. That Fulham performance from West Brom seems like a hell of a long time ago now, with the sort of performances they've served up since then, and I'm still yet to be convinced that Steve Bruce is the right man for West Brom next season. But there we have it, those were all the matches that went on in the Championship over this weekend. Do get your thoughts on all of them in the comments down below. Now, without any further ado, let's hop into the midweek matches, and boy have we got some big ones to preview. So heading into the midweek matches, starting out with Millwall up against Swansea at the Den. Pretty tough game to call this one, because Millwall are on a top 6 charge at the moment, but Swansea are coming off the high of absolutely battering Cardiff over the weekend. I think that maybe Millwall home advantage, having that bit more to play for, and maybe with Swansea on the come down of the high from that Cardiff game. I'm going to go 1-0 Millwall, but Swansea could certainly cause a stir in that game. Peterborough up against Luton, going to go 2-0 Luton in that one. It was quite a competitive game between Luton and Millwall at the weekend, and expecting Luton to get back to in ways against their pretty all over the place Peterborough backline at the moment. Preston up against Blackpool is the huge derby game going on Tuesday, and as a North End fan, I've got to admit I'm pretty nervous going into this one. Before the international break, we didn't exactly leave it on a great note. We were battered by Luton, and at the weekend, although it was only 1-0 derby, we were by far and away the second best team in that one as well. It does feel like this is a Preston side that is unwinding towards the end of the season, and that's the last thing you want going into a derby game of this sort of magnitude. I also think that with Blackpool, you know, above us in the league at the moment, they won the reverse fixture. I do think there's a little bit more pressure on North End for this one, but it should be a good atmosphere at Deepdale. I'm going to sit on the fence for this one. I'm going to say it's going to be a 1-1 draw. Obviously, Blackpool didn't have the best weekend either, losing to Forest in the manner they did. Yeah, I'm going to go 1-1. I don't think there'll be a hell of a lot in it, but yeah, we can't lose that again, surely. Sheffield United up against QPR. I'm going to go 2-0 Sheff United. Both sides looking to bounce back this weekend. And I think I've got more faith in Sheff United to go ahead and do so, especially at home where they have typically been stronger. QPR just haven't got that balance right at the moment in their setup. Reading against Stoke's quite an interesting game because I think this is a massive opportunity here for Reading. Although Stoke have started to put together a few performances and have got back-to-back wins in the league. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw in that game. Could very much go either way. Middlesbrough up against Fulham is an absolutely huge game when it comes to the top 6 chase. Middlesbrough looked quite good over the weekend, but I'm expecting this one to be a much more competitive match against a Fulham side who look really good against QPR as well. I think I am edging towards Fulham, although Middlesbrough's home record, whilst Wilder has been there, has been really good, but Fulham have just got so much firepower about them that it's hard to see a way past. A draw wouldn't surprise me, but I'm just going to edge Fulham for that one. Forest up against Coventry should be quite a competitive game as well. Coventry had some decent performances recently, but Nottingham Forest at the moment are on a run under Steve Cooper. Absolutely clinical at the weekend against what could have been a quite tricky fixture against Blackpool. I'm going to go 2-1 Forest in that game. Then finishing it off at the Hawthorns for West Brom up against Bournemouth. West Brom, another side who don't typically tend to lose all too many home matches, but I was quite impressed with what I saw in terms of Bournemouth's attacking play over the weekend. And going off West Brom's performance against Birmingham, I'm going to go 2-0 Bournemouth in that game. So, as you can see to the side of me, those are my score predictions heading into the midweek matches. Do leave yours down below. Well, apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So, if you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. And do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. Apart from that, though, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.